We wanted to create a fun, non-judgmental space where women can talk about their shared experiences.
Here, we will normalize the challenges we face as females living in a society that dictates unrealistic and outdated expectations on what a woman should be.
Together, we hope to cultivate a supportive community of women who empower one another to courageously live unapologetically.
A quick disclaimer before we get started. Although Cindy and Danielle are licensed therapists, this podcast is not to be interpreted as therapy or a replacement of therapeutic services. It is strictly a conversation between two women about their experiences in the world. If you like today's episode, please make sure to like and subscribe below. Also, follow us on all of our social media platforms at Unapologetically Females. With that being said, we hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome back for another episode. We have a change of scenery today, too. We do. Our last couple episodes
I've been in different places.
Yeah, we are
mixing it up.
Expanding our horizons. Don't worry, we'll be back to our normal aesthetic. Because, everybody's...
Our normal quiet house.
Yeah, because this house is not quiet. So,
well, for good reason.
Apologize in advance for all the background noise if there's any.
Hey, it's a good lead into what we're talking about.
Yeah, so today we are talking about having children, the different stages of life. So I had kids in my 30s.
And I was in my 20s.
And so just, talking through the difference in experience, differences in experience. And also just kind of talking about our own pregnancy journeys.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you had your first kid?
So 26, pregnant at 25. So I got married at 23, pregnant at 25, mom at 26. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then 29. So 26 and 29.
Did you know that you always wanted to be a mom?
Totally. I was that little girl that played with dolls and,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like whenever anyone asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was a mom.
I have a friend like that. I don't know if she said that every time when she was growing up, but
yeah.
I always, as her friend, knew, I'm like, she was born to be a mother. Like my friend Melanie, shout out to Melanie. She's such a good mom. She has three kids. Yeah, I'm like, I always pictured her as that, she, before she became a mom, she graduated and became a teacher and I believe it was kinder, not first. So a kindergarten teacher. She did that for years. And then, her and her husband got married and then they had kids and she...
It makes sense because good moms make good teachers,
right?
I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
for sure.
But yeah, I was in my 30s. I don't know if I would say I always knew. I think I liked the idea of having kids, but then as I got older, I think I was more of like, I guess I did. I like the idea of having kids. I wanted kids. I guess I didn't know when that was going to happen. And I never thought I'd get married though. So that was different.
Would you have been okay not having kids?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think so.
Because I respect the people that say it's not for me.
Yeah, no, I do too.
I respect that so much because I do feel like there's a lot of people that feel like that's what they're supposed to do. And then they become a parent and it's a lot. It's a hard job.
Yes. I can't imagine my life without my children.
Same.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's it for sure. Especially after having, your first one, that's the biggest life changer. You know what I mean? It's going from no kids to a kid.
Right.
And,
no kid, like thinking about yourself all the time and your partner. Right. And then now all of a sudden it's all about this little bundle.
Right.
Yeah.
Every decision you make is literally involves planning for this other human,
and they require so much stuff. They're so little, but they have so much stuff.
Yeah. There's so much stuff. There's so much, just everything goes into that.
Yeah.
But, when we had Harper, I believe I was 31 or 32. And it was very planned. It was a very planned pregnancy in that, I was like, okay, I'm going to get off birth control and then we're going to have 6 months because, everybody tells you it takes a long time to get out of your system, that whole messaging. Newsflash, it doesn't for everyone. I got off birth control and was pregnant in the same month.
Fertile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how it happened. But I had finished school. I had a lot of fun in my 20s. So for me, I can't imagine having kids any younger. Like I would have been such a different mom, I think. And so I think everybody, it's a very individual journey. We're all at different stages in life and who we are. I also think time wise, I mean, although we are only 10 years apart, we're still 10 years apart. And even the times I think of have shifted, like from when people were having babies, when you were having babies, it was very common to have them at that age versus now women are
getting married later.
Right.
I feel like, which I think is great. I think they're taking more time to really explore their 20s. 20s are hard.
Right.
Your 20s are hard.
Yeah. I agree. Figuring out who you are, who your friends are, what you want to do.
Yeah.
Stabilizing, like figuring out life. It's hard. There was something that I actually have it. I'm going to look it up actually while we're doing this, because when we were at Miraval, we met the woman that we were sitting next to at our group dinner. She was or is an anesthesiologist, and we were talking about something like this, and she sent us this article. It said, okay, so the article says women over 40 are having more babies than teen moms for the first time ever.
That's right. I remember that now that you say that. Yeah.
And so now, like I don't know. I just think now it's more obviously, there's statistics behind it.
Sure.
That it's more common to have babies later in life, which I'm curious, like at 25, 26, like how was that for you? Did you feel like, no, we're ready, like the stage of life you were in, or you didn't know any different either?
I mean, are you ever really ready?
Right.
I think I definitely made more mistakes because I was younger, maybe. I was super fortunate in that I found a group of women who were just a little bit older than me, and we formed a play group, and I had a lot of support from that, and there's a couple of them are still my closest friends. So that really helped me, because them being just in their 30s and me being in my 20s, they were able to kind of guide me in ways that, and also I didn't feel like I was missing out on my 20s. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I was the only one that had a baby.
Oh, really?
I was the first of all, my 14 that we always talk about, I was the first of everyone.
Oh.
And all of our friends that lived here from college. So I was kind of on that mama island by myself, and I found these women who just kind of took me in, and it was awesome. And now our kids are friends, and
it's so necessary to have friends that are in the same season of life with you, like with children, because it's really hard to do things with people that don't have kids your age, or similar ages.
Yeah.
Or to do things with friends that don't have kids at all, because I think for me as the parent, I'm constantly like apologizing for like the disruption.
Right.
Like, sorry, they need this, or, oh my gosh, or, and I certainly don't want to take, my kids to my non-kid friends' houses. Cause then I'm like, oh my gosh, like so sorry, or, the interruptions to conversations or things like that. Not that those friends care. I think it's more about I'm in my own head. But
for sure, I think we're way more in our own head. I remember being on a plane or being in places and thinking, oh my goodness. And that was one of the mistakes that I made, I think, with my first, is I was very worried about what everyone else was, how everyone else was being disrupted. And I feel as though I overcompensated and probably gave her a little more anxiety than,
Fair.
Yeah. And I regret that.
She was feeding off of your own your energy, your anxious energy.
Exactly. Yeah. Although I saw something really cute the other day on social media. It was this mom who, it was the little, I don't know how old the baby was, but it was their first flight, and the mom had made like little Ziploc baggies with like, earplugs and something else, and it passed it out to the people around him. And it had this little thing that said, please forgive me, this is my first flight. If I'm loud, please enjoy these things, you know? And I was like, wow, that's super thoughtful.
Very thoughtful. Very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I look back and I do think, you know, the timing for me was where it needed to be. You know, and even for my husband, I look at him too, because like my husband is your age. You guys are the same age.
We're both 50.
Yeah. So he had kids even later in life than I did. You know what I mean? And so, but I do think that the timing for both of us was necessary. Just based off of where, if you can hear a little voice in the background, it's my son.
It's perfect. So fitting.
So yeah, I think like when I look at our lives before kids, and just the unpredictability of of our schedules, and he would work late evenings and, you know, into the night, and we'd stay up late, and we would sleep in, and we'd go out a lot, especially on like a whim, you know, and we had a lot of fun. And so, yeah, I think that the timing for us, although, you know, again, it's later in life, and we probably are tired parents,
right,
because we're a little older.
Well, yeah, a little bit, but I mean, you know, it happens when it's supposed to happen, and you just rally, right?
It's true.
You just rally. Yeah. My situation is that my husband at the time was in medical school when we first got pregnant, and then residency the second time we got pregnant. So I did a lot of alone parenting.
That's hard. I don't know how people do that.
Yeah, it was, shout out to all those single moms out there. Wow. Because at the end of the day, he would eventually come home and I would have a break, you know. But for me, it was, I quit my corporate job and ran an in-home daycare so that I could stay home with my kids, and which turned out to be just an awesome experience. But definitely wasn't how I saw my path going career-wise, but I didn't care because I was a mom and that's what I always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. And then you went back to school later in life once they were older.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So something I also always found interesting, and I think that, I don't know, when speaking with other women who people are carrying babies later in life, and again, everyone has their own experiences. I do think sometimes it can be harder on your body, as you know, to carry a baby as you get older.
True.
But what I always found interesting is that there's a bajillion books out there of like what to expect and all these things about pregnancy and parenting as well, but pregnancy. And I don't know if there is a book that exists. Maybe it does, but I didn't see one. That
maybe you need to write it.
I know that really talked about like the real experiences of pregnancy.
Okay, so I am probably overstepping when I do this, but I do share with some of my patients, clients, when they're pregnant. I give them the nitty gritty because nobody told me about the diaper that you have to wear home from the hospital, or the hemorrhoids, or the like the real stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Rita's like,
or like your mucus plug.
Or your mucus plug.
Or you know, like who talks about, I mean, and that like you, or after you give birth, and you also give birth to a placenta. Like it's, you know.
Yeah, right. Like nobody talks about that.
Right. Now I don't know what the medical term is, but my friend Melanie, again, she's coming up in this episode a few times. I remember telling her, because she already had her first kid, and I remember telling her, I have so much pain in my crotch. Like when I roll over in bed, when I go from my bed to standing up first thing in the morning, I had to like brace myself because it was so much pain. And she's like, oh, lightning crotch. And I was like, like,
P.S. hate the word crotch. But
I know,
anyway.
I know you do.
It's right up there with moist. Yeah,
but and nobody talks. I'm like, what is happening to me? And now I didn't experience that with my son. But with Harper, it was, and I mean, for like a good 2 months, it was
took a long time to heal.
Also, my feet. I got plantar fasciitis during my pregnancy with Harper.
Yeah,
Like,
there's some weird things that happen to our bodies.
Yeah. And it didn't happen with my son. Like, so I'm not saying it's universal. And I would also, like, I am very well aware that I had overall very easy pregnancies. Like,
same.
I'm very lucky. Like, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, poor her. She had,
you know, no.
her feet hurt.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I didn't have morning sickness.
Yeah.
I didn't, all these things that I've watched my friends go through.
Yeah.
I was very lucky.
So was I. But there were things that I'm like, nobody told me that it was like, I mean, I remember the pain that I was in when I rolled over in bed in my pelvis.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I'm like, I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing was, with my daughter, I had heartburn like crazy. And, I remember at a certain point I would drink water and have heartburn.
Oh yeah. I had horrible heartburn. Yeah. Now that you say that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Pepsid was my best friend.
It was crazy.
Well, hi, we have a special guest.
The dog has made an appearance.
Hello.
This is oh my gosh. And we
and the baby that we're
oh no. Okay.
Well, here they are.
So this is quite the experience at my house. I have, just for people that are listening, we have a dog that just came out. We have my son that just came out and
did a little dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter who then participated, Cindy talked. So now the dog's back in her face. This episode is quite the adventure. So we have a dog.
Added another unapologetic female.
My dog Ivy. So we'll see how long it takes before she.
That's all she wanted.
Yeah, what she does. Back
to where we
episode.
Where? Yeah.
So we were talking about
heartburn.
Oh, heartburn.
Yeah, and thank goodness my doctor said, I'm not a doctor, but my doctor told me that Pepsid was okay to take when you're pregnant, and that saved me.
Yeah, I started to have to take stuff too because it was so uncomfortable.
They also say that if you have a lot of heartburn, it means the baby is going to have a lot of hair.
Yeah, there is something to that too that I've heard. Neither one of my kids had a ton of hair.
Oh.
I mean, they had like peach fuzz.
Oh, yeah. No, mine had a lot.
Yeah, neither one of my kids had a ton of hair. So the amount of noise that's happened in this episode, I'm sorry for people that are listening because who knows what you're picking up on at this point. There's so much background noise here. We tried. We really tried.
We did.
Yeah. So, anyways, but I think that all of those things, I don't feel like anybody prepared me for. Like,
no. And I have an older sister who at some point will be on this podcast, hopefully.
We're going to do a siblings episode.
A siblings episode.
My brother hasn't been told yet.
Well, now he has.
Because he's our listener.
Yeah. He's our one listener.
Yeah.
No, but that was really helpful because she didn't tell me the nitty-gritty stuff, which I now tell her, that I regret that she didn't, but I did watch her, go, and I did hear stories that helped me. So possibly my favorite thing about the break that we just had to take was that Rita Googled mucus plug.
Yes.
And may never have children.
Yeah. She said, I just did a deep dive to learn about mucus plugs and what? It happens. It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
So we were talking about, okay, so I was getting with Harper, the heartburn, like with just water.
Right.
And I took something too because it was like unbearable. The other thing is my snoring when I was pregnant with Harper. I'm not normally a snorer.
Yeah.
And with Harper, it was.
Makes sense. Right?
It was intense.
I don't remember.
I was
snoring,
told.
But yeah, right. You were told. You were asleep, so who cares?
I don't think with Hendrix it was the same, but with Harper, yeah, it was. it was a thing for me.
Yeah, I don't think I was told that I snored, but
Yeah.
probably did.
The other thing was, okay, so we were talking about postpartum. So the diaper that you wear home.
Yeah.
And not only the diaper, but like,
It's not just one day either.
and like the
That shit
pads and
continues.
the witch hazel and
The hot flashes.
the losing of
the
your
losing
hair.
of the hair. Yeah.
I
Looking at
lost-
the shower floor and being like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost so much.
I could have made a
hair.
wig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Okay, but we're kind of making this sound dreary, but it really is the most amazing experience you'll ever have in your whole life. It's the best thing I ever did. No, it really is.
it really is.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But yeah, I do think though, like for where I was at in life, like in my 20s, I was just so unsettled. You know, I was so unpredictable, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so my brother, he had kids in his 20s, early in his 20s. And I remember I always wanted our kids to be close in age. And not that, like, once they become adults, it will be, like, the age difference won't even matter. I want to say my niece and Harper are, like, 4 years apart. So that's not.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch my kids who are 21 and 24 become closer with their cousins who are 30 and 27. Growing up, they weren't as close. They didn't have as much opportunity to be close either because they lived in California and we lived here. But it's really cool to watch them as adults hang out. And my older one lives in Dallas. My older niece lives in Dallas. So they hang out from time to time. So I love that. Yeah. I hear that. Yeah.
The other thing I think that was on my mind when I was having kids later in life was that the time that my kids would get with my parents, you know. So my mom's mom, so my grandma on my mom's side, she passed away when I was a junior in high school, I believe. Yeah, I was a junior and my brother was a senior. And that's something that like I wish, like, so I was the youngest grandchild. So my mom and her brother were 12 years apart. He passed away. And so he obviously had kids a lot soon, you know, earlier than her. So I was the youngest grandchild of like the first crop of kids. And so I had my cousins. I don't know who I guess is next, like closest in age to me. But I'm like, oh, they were so lucky that they got so many more years with my grandparents than I did, you know?
Yeah.
Because I loved spending time with them. And so that's something that I have thought about for my kids of like timing wise, how much time I'm, you know.
Did you ever think about having more than 2 kids?
No.
Okay.
No. I almost
tried.
just had one.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. You did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tried to have more and God knew what he was doing.
Fair.
Yeah. But I kind of always had this thing where I wanted to foster or adopt or something. And we weren't on the same page with that. So it didn't happen. But now looking back, I'm like, nope. The 2 that I had was
meant to be.
It was meant to be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I always knew. So we had one, you know, our first and our second are 5 years apart. And that's because I think just the uncertainty of we weren't sure. And then after a while, I did know I was set. Like I didn't want Harper to be
an only child.
And not even an only child, but more so, I'm so morbid, but I'm like, when I'm gone, I want her to have like another sibling, like someone else here that has a shared experience.
I'm not sure that that's morbid. I think that's just how you start thinking as a parent. You know, you start putting their futures ahead of everything else and thinking like you want their best interests. And
so that's how, you know, for me, the driving force, it was like, I want one more. And also I really want Harper to have a sibling that's here with her after I'm gone. So, but yeah, I for me too is definitely was enough.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not like, I also knew I wasn't going to be a stay-at-home mom either. Like I think that there are like you know, like there are people that are built that way, and I'm just not built that way, you know, or I love having my children and love spending time with them and love going on vacation and being with that, you know what I mean? I love being involved in doing that, but like being a stay-at-home mom just, for my own well-being is not, you know, what's best. So I feel like having the balance between a career and a family is what has worked for me and fits for me.
Well, and the way that you planned it was, you know, you finished school and then you got your license and then you had kids, and so you planned it perfectly that way.
Right. So, and that's something that I do think about, because had I had kids younger, I wouldn't have been, you know, there would have been so many other things that I would have had to focus on or do. I mean, I still have, you know, a career that I focus on too, but I'm not working towards the next, you know, getting my license or finishing school or those things that it's like this, I need to achieve this to get to the next thing, you know? So yeah, I do think that for me, it needed to happen the way it did. Whereas like for you went back to school at what age?
I went back to school at 40 something. Let's see, 2018.
So were your kids in high school when you went back to school?
My youngest and I graduated at the same time.
High school and college. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So she graduated high school and I graduated my master's, and I planned it that way. You know, my master's,
that was smart.
Well, I drew it out. I only did one class at a time, and you know, because I also didn't want it to run into my time with her while she was home, and I wanted to be able to do all the things, you know. And so yeah, it worked great for me.
Looking back, anything like, do you feel like anything was different because you had kids at the age you did, or you know, that was more challenging or easier?
I love that. I'm allowed to have a midlife crisis right now at 50 because my kids are grown and flown. And I like the idea maybe of being a little bit younger grandma so that I can be active and all that.
Right.
So yeah, I when people talk about their 20s, it's interesting because they're like, oh, like you said, you know, our 20s were woo, and people say my 20s were wild. So I'm a little sad about that I missed that part of life, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because that's all I wanted to do was have my babies.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I think everyone's timing works out the way it's supposed to,
I think it does.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It will always be hard. It's just
exactly. And there's never a right time. There's never a perfect time, I should say.
Right.
Perfection doesn't exist, right? But there's never a perfect time to have a baby.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And everyone's experience is different. I do think also like support systems
100%.
also like really, really matter too for everybody's, you know, specific situation.
Exactly.
If you have a lot of support, it can make all the difference.
It can.
You know?
I do wish that we had when my kids were really young, we didn't have a whole lot of grandparent involvement. My ex-husband's parents were both still working, and so they weren't able. They have since really been involved with my kids, but I didn't have that. I always kind of wish that I had that mom that, you know, like your mom, you know.
Yeah, my mom's really involved in our lives.
Yeah, where I could like drop the kids and go to the market by myself or, you know, things like that, just for a lot of reasons so that they had a closer relationship, but also so I had a little more support system with people that I could really trust and knew that they were being loved and taken care of.
Yeah, that's something that I'm grateful for, is that I had kids after both of my parents were retired, I want to say. I mean, maybe my dad wasn't retired, but my mom was for sure. I'm trying to think. My dad's been retired for maybe 7 years now, 6 years, 7 years. So he retired maybe when Harper was 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but my parents have both been very involved in our kids' lives. And so I'm really grateful for that, because again, we had them older. So they're mean, they're not old, but they're, they're not in their 50s.
Right, right. I think it's really cool too for young kids to have that older generation experience, right? Like I spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up, and I learned different music and different stories and different history, and like it was a cool learning experience in that way of just watching an older generation and how that that dynamic.
There's something to learn.
There's something to learn. For sure. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I know I always there was an article, I don't know, it came out a long time ago, that it was something about like the more time that grandparents spend with their grandchildren, like it prolongs their life or something.
I believe that. I totally believe that. It like keeps
so I
them
just
young.
need to remind my mom every time she watches my children, I'm just prolonging your life.
I'm doing you a favor.
Duh. No, she helps us out a lot, when she can. And the kids have, we live in the same neighborhood. So we're lucky that, we can just drop them off if we want to when we go to the grocery store or, do a quick something or another, or if we, go out or, whatever. But they're very helpful in that way. So that's nice.
Anything you would have done different?
I don't think so. Again, I reflecting on my 20s, I truly believe that I wouldn't have been able to be the mom that I wanted to be had I had children in my 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you like growing up? My job was always I would babysit. Like that's what I did.
I was a nanny.
You were a nanny. Okay. Yeah.
I was a nanny for, years.
Maybe that's what made you hold off.
yeah, maybe.
Good
for
birth
years,
control.
Yeah, years in my 20s. I was a nanny for a family, for one family for maybe it was 5 years of my 20s.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. Yeah, I was with them.
It's an awesome job. My younger one does that now and babysits a lot. And it's just an awesome job to help prepare you when you really don't know, I'm looking at Rita, much about that, especially if you don't have any siblings younger than you.
For sure. For sure. I even, naively thought when I was pregnant with Harper, I know what this is like. I had a ton of cousins and, always
had a big family, which
big
is awesome.
Family. Yeah, babies around all the time. I had my niece and nephew at that point. I was in my 30s, so I was like, piece of cake. Like I didn't, and then the child comes and you're like, whoa, this is mine.
I've just got to say, I'm waiting for that day that my girls call me and they're like, Mom, this is hard.
Yeah. Well, I don't, you have no idea until you do it, you know? Okay. So I thought I was prepared, and then I had my own child, and it's like, nobody actually prepares you for your own child. No,
nothing. No, not siblings, not cousins, not babysitting. Yeah. It's this enormous, I'm walking out of the hospital with this little human being and I am forever attached to them.
Right. Right. And I don't think at 23, at 33, at 43,
right. Nobody can
be prepared
for that.
Yeah. So I do think, for me, my timing was what it needed to be, and it was perfect for me and where I was at. And sounds like for you too, where you were at, and it's worked out okay for both of us.
It's worked out okay.
Yeah.
I mean, as we witnessed today, they're thriving.
My kids, yes, they are.
Running around and thriving.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. Well, as always, I'm Danielle.
And I'm Cindy. Thanks for listening.